Welcome to another episode of Untold Legends, where I take a deep dive into your favorite fictional stories. Last time on the Metroid Retrospective series, I detailed how the success of Metroid Prime almost immediately led to the formation of a proper sequel, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, where a group of Galactic Federation Marines crash-landed on the planet Aether, a world stuck between two dimensions and a war between the Luminoth of the Light World and the Ing of Dark Aether. Once Samus arrived, she discovered the Phazon-powered evil of Dark Samus, and the Luminoth enlisted her help to save their dying world. Samus battled her way through both dimensions and restored the technology holding the planet together. She confronted the Emperor of the Ing and Dark Samus, destroying them both and saving planet Aether from its dark counterpart. Metroid Prime 2 Echoes would be the final Metroid game for the Nintendo GameCube, but the Prime series was destined to continue, as part of a revolutionary new generation of gaming.
We gave you DS, a new Game Boy, and new games to play on them. And now you say, you want a revolution? Well, we've got one.
The follow-up console to replace the GameCube, the Nintendo Revolution, eventually finalized as the Nintendo Wii, was released in the year 2006. It was a unique new idea that primarily focused on the advent of motion controls and would fondly be remembered for supplying free hand cramps after holding the remote-like controller for a long gaming session. A huge library filled with shovelware, including classics such as Gallop and Ride, Story Hour Adventures, and Imagine Party Babies. And let's not forget the damage done to televisions everywhere.
Right here, I'm getting ready to serve. All I do is throw that ball up in the air, and oh, jeez, and there goes the tennis racket.
However, given my criticisms of the Wii, the console still managed to sell over 100 million units in its lifetime, and it did generate some heavy hitters that incorporated motion control mechanics in a creative manner. The follow-up to Metroid Prime 2 was one of these examples, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. It was revealed to the public for the first time during Nintendo's E3 2005 presentation in a pre-rendered teaser trailer, and during E3's 2006 conference they confirmed it would be a Nintendo Wii launch title. But development on Corruption would have its issues, and the game would miss the Wii's launch date. Originally, it was planned as a much more open world and non-linear experience with an expanded use of Samus' ship as a primary game mechanic. The Wii console had an increased amount of RAM compared to the GameCube, which allowed for higher quality audio samples, and voice acting was incorporated for many of its major characters. But the system was a much smaller upgrade in terms of tech specs than Retro Studios anticipated, and many of their gameplay ideas had to be scaled back. The controls were also an initial problem due to the Wii Remote not having enough buttons for the amount of functions required. Delaying the game allowed Retro Studios to properly program the controls. As development progressed, Retro Studios promised, in verbatim, a game about closure, told against the backdrop of an epic struggle, the final chapter of the Prime series. Though I suppose now that's no longer true. Federation Force was also labeled a Prime game, and eventually, likely a very long time from now, we're getting this. While Metroid fans waited eagerly for the next chapter, Nintendo received plenty of criticism for its lack of marketing the game, especially compared to the heavy marketing of the original Metroid Prime, a result of their new focus towards casual gaming. In response, Nintendo created the Metroid Prime 3 Preview Channel, a standalone Wii channel that could be downloaded that contained uploaded preview videos of the game. And finally, the day of Corruption arrived. Metroid Prime 3 released in North America on August 27, 2007, almost a year after the launch of the Wii. It arrived to a wave of positive reviews celebrating the responsive motion controls and incredible atmosphere of the worlds. In just 18 weeks, Metroid Prime 3 sales passed over 1 million copies sold. And where did Samus' next adventure take her? How did Retro Studios deliver a storyline against the backdrop of an epic struggle? As always, this presentation is not a gameplay walkthrough. Some gameplay elements may not be shown in the proper order for storytelling purposes, so don't use this video as a guide. Welcome to the Metroid Timeline, Part 6, Galaxy at War. The Luminoff of planet Aether were at peace. After Samus saved their dying world and destroyed the Emperor Ring, the Galactic Federation sent an Olympic-class battleship, the GFS Honor, back to the planet to dismantle the remaining space pirate bases and mining facilities. During the operation, they discovered the remains of Phazon in the form of crystallized ore, and took multiple samples for studying. Perhaps Phazon could be used to the advantage of Galactic Federation forces in countering space pirate attacks. But Phazon wasn't the only aspect of the Dark Aether incident that survived. The regenerative properties of Phazon ensured that Dark Samus's encounter with Samus wouldn't be their final meeting. Dark Samus was drawn to Phazon and had an insatiable hunger to consume it. It reformed inside the space pirate vessel, the Colossus, using their collected Phazon storage. The vessel was on the way to exact revenge on the Galactic Federation on Aether and take back the Phazon they were stealing. But Dark Samus consumed the entirety of the Phazon stock inside the Colossus. It rampaged through the halls of the ship until a third of the space pirate forces were wiped out only minutes later. Only a few remained alive and well enough to stand down. Under the influence of Dark Samus, they had no choice but to bow and pledge their loyalty. As space pirates do, their loyalty goes to the strongest among them, and Dark Samus forged them into an incredibly effective fighting force using Phazon and advanced technology. She was now the head of the space pirates, the newly crowned space pirate leader. They saw Dark Samus as their liberator, the savior that will pave the way to glorious victory and cosmic rule. By this time, Samus had destroyed space pirate operations on Zebes, Talon 4, and Aether, victories that should have left the space pirate organization completely crippled. Yet under Dark Samus's leadership, they unleashed war on the galaxy, on multiple fronts. Attacks across worlds increased, becoming more coordinated and organized, deadlier than ever. Another Galactic Federation battleship, the GFS Valhalla, was traveling through the Klar Nebula before it vanished. The Galactic Federation sent drones to investigate its whereabouts and found the wreckage of the Valhalla, leaving only an empty husk of a ship behind, damaged and floating in space. The space pirates had never attacked such a large and formidable target head-on, and plans had to be made to defend a free galaxy. In response, the Galactic Federation summoned trusted bounty hunters, including Samus Aran. Samus was welcomed on board the GFS Olympus by Galactic Federation Marines, under the command of Fleet Admiral Castor Dane. Just like Samus, he was orphaned at an early age by a space pirate attack, and dedicated his military career to hunting them down. Samus made her way to the meeting room and learned that the space pirate situation was much worse than she had imagined.
Andreda, enough! Looks like everyone's here now. Before I begin the briefing, let me introduce 242, the flagship's Aurora unit.
Ah, an organic supercomputer. Fascinating. It's my understanding that the Galactic Federation's core network is comprised of such units.
That is correct, Core. And we serve as the network's master control.
The news Admiral Dane had to share was dire, and it involved the supercomputers the Galactic Federation used to maintain its entire network. For 2 decades, the Federation network depended on organic supercomputers similar to the mother brain the Chozo created. Originally, what they named Aurora units were created for scientific purposes, and their role expanded into the government, business, and military sector to access and control a tremendous database of information and functions. Recently, Galactic Federation scientists discovered that a space pirate-made virus infected the Aurora Unit network. They were forced to shut down the entire network, and Federation scientists were quickly able to make a vaccine. The virus was purged from Aurora Unit 242, the one based on the Olympus, but the other units across the nearby systems were still infected. The vaccine had to be administered manually to regain control of the Aurora units. It was also discovered that the space pirates were able to compromise the network through Aurora Unit 313, the unit on board that destroyed GFS Valhalla. The bounty hunters' missions were to get the units back online and investigate space pirate activity, but the space pirates were no longer hiding. They were coming in full force.
Condition red. All personnel to combat-ready stations. Repeat. Condition red.
Sir, a space pirate attack fleet has just warped out of some sort of wormhole. They're also heading for Sector 0, the planet's home base.
Damn! They're targeting the planetary defense system. Get down to the planet and aid the ground troops. Stop those pirates from disabling the defense system. Go! Samus, get to your ship. We need you down on the planet. Until we get the fleet in formation. Hey, get the leg. Untold fighter squadron. I want heaven.
Samus had to get off the ship immediately, but a space pirate berserker lord stood in her way. A Knight-class pirate that survived extreme phazon corruption, a result of Project Helix experiments on Talon 4. Samus rushed to the planet below, the focus of the space pirate attack, planet Norian. Once it was a barren, inhospitable world, but a Galactic Federation project led by Aurora Unit 486 allowed it to be terraformed into a lush forest world. Now Norian hosted an enormous Galactic Federation base. The space pirate attack knocked out multiple generators and disabled the planetary defense system. They wanted Norian vulnerable, and Samus and her allies set out to defend it, until the true threat presented itself, a threat of planetary proportions. Enormous object never before seen by the Galactic Federation was coming in at a high speed, some sort of meteor or weapon set to smash into the planet. The impact was estimated to obliterate everything in the immediate area, and the space pirates fought fiercely to keep her at bay. What they didn't expect was new Federation Marine units armed with Phazon-enhanced weaponry. The research into the Phazon from Aether resulted in new PED battlesuits. Phazon devices were attached to their suits that powered up their attacks and kept the Marines safe from Phazon sickness by limiting direct contact with the substance. They were a huge asset in fighting back against the space pirate assault, and the rest of Samus's fellow bounty hunters continued to assist.
This one has finished bothering us. Go on ahead. I will stay here and protect the area.
Samus needed to reach the generator to get the defense system back online, but the space pirates were tracking her and unleashed one of their greatest threats. Meta Ridley had returned. Samus suspected that he'd survived their battle on Talon 4, since his body was never actually recovered, and much of his cybernetics were no longer grafted onto his body. It seemed that much of his skin had regrown and healed from being incinerated on Zebes. Ridley was the last line of defense, the only obstacle keeping Samus from activating the planetary defense system.
Space Pirate Gray is definitely not my style. Machines aren't my thing either, so I'll let you get this generator back online. Thanks, Sammy.
bounty hunter Runda saved Samus from the enormous fall, but time was running short. The object was only moments from hitting the planet. Samus and the other bounty hunters gathered and traveled together to the control room. If there was any final threat waiting, they would face it together while reactivating the generator. But the space pirate troops failed and Meta Ridley failed. Now the destruction of Norian depended on the actions of the space pirate leader. Samus saved Norian and destroyed the object successfully before it smashed into the planet. When she opened her eyes, it took her a moment to realize where she was. She was back aboard the GFS Olympus being treated by their medical science staff. Samus had been unconscious for an entire month after Dark Samus's attack. After the space pirate invasion was fended off, the Galactic Federation recovered all of the hunters. The rest had already gotten better and were sent on missions of their own, while Samus remained in a coma. Medical exams showed that somehow their bodies were self-generating phazon, with no immediate negative effects. While Samus was out, the Federation experimented with her power suit and installed a phazon enhancement device. Theoretically, given Samus's current state, the phazon coursing through her body could fuel a PED suit using her own internal energy, versus the limited stock inside the PED Marines' backpacks. Now that she was awake, she could test the extent of her new abilities.
Recharging energy reserves. Training complete.
Her arm cannon could now activate a temporary hyper mode of devastating power, but she had to be careful not to use it too long, a safety measure to keep her systems from overloading. An Aurora Unit 242 on board the Olympus wanted to meet with Samus immediately. The situation after Norian had become far worse. It was time to receive her latest mission.
Welcome, Samus Aran. Let us begin. Time is most critical. During the attempted pirate invasion of Norian, it was confirmed that two nearby planets were similarly attacked. These planets were named Rio and Elysia. These leviathans have impacted and embedded themselves deep into each planet, spreading a virulent phazon carried inside their bodies. The leviathans must be destroyed. 2 weeks ago, we dispatched Runtus to Brio, Gore to Elysia, while Gandreda was sent to locate the space pirate stronghold. Like you, they were outfitted with PED devices in order to confront this new threat. We lost contact with all of them 7 days ago, and fear the worst. In their absence, we need you to travel to these planets and finish their missions. The closest planet is Brio. This will be your first objective.
What Samus heard from 242 was disturbing. These Leviathans smash into worlds and corrupt them with Phazon from the inside out. Now 2 nearby planets were experiencing the same effects that were seen on Talon 4 and Aether. Those in fact were not hit by meteors as previously believed. They were hit by these Leviathans. The truth behind the Phazon mystery was beginning to come together. The Leviathan of Talon 4 must have been slowly consumed by a single Metroid, creating the Metroid Prime she fought in the Impact Crater. And the Leviathan of Aether must have been located somewhere on Dark Aether, which was destroyed when Samus disrupted its planetary energy. It was clear that Dark Samus and the Space Pirates were working together to destroy planets using the Leviathans. But where were they getting them? What was the source? And what happened to the other hunters? The first planet she was tasked with investigating was Brio. It was discovered by Federation scouts 10 years prior and was deemed uninhabitable by normal human standards. The planet's orbital alignment ensured that 48% of its surface was constantly exposed to the sun, and another 48% was covered in permanent night. The remaining 4% was a fertile jungle lining Brio's equator. The planet was best known for its abundance of fuel gel, an extremely flammable substance that was used to fuel starships across the galaxy. Space pirates targeting Brio in their war against the Galactic Federation made perfect sense. The Federation controlled the distribution of fuel gel from Brio, and proceeds from fuel gel sales were funneled back into its own military. Destroying Brio could cripple a major source of their fuel gel supply and affect its ability to maintain a strong military force. To stop this from happening, Samus had to travel to the crashed Leviathan and destroy it. But the space pirates knew the hunter would come and placed a massive energy shield around it. Samus needed to find a way to disable it. While traveling through Brio, she found traces of ice everywhere. The abilities of Runtus, the bounty hunter, were primarily ice-based. He must have been there recently. The atmosphere of Brio was hot, home to many natural life forms that were resistant to the corrosive effects of fuel gel. Some life forms even thrived from its presence. The dominant species of Brio were the Reptilicus, reptilian inhabitants that were once a thriving sentient species. It was also suspected that General Kraid of the Space Pirates was a drastically mutated Reptilicus. War destroyed their society, and in time all that was left were the mindless, vicious animals that Samus encountered. In their early history, the Reptilicus of Brio enjoyed eras of peace, and eventually developed spaceflight. They launched their ships in all directions, eager to study the cosmos and learn about other species. During their travels, they encountered many other peaceful races and exchanged knowledge with the Chozo, the Luminoth, and the Elah. They brought the knowledge they gained back to Brio and entered a new age of science. But their new reliance on science caused friction in their society. While some Reptilicus embraced the scientific knowledge learned outside their world, some mourned the loss of their old primal traditions. The Chozo had warned the Reptilicus to seek balance between the old ways and the new. But the Reptilicus, self-proclaimed lords of science, completely ignored the feelings of their primal brethren. The primals of Brio and their traditions were denounced publicly by the very first Lord of Science, an act that sparked a civil war within their species. The Lords of Science, once focused on exploration, used their intelligence to forge weapons of war and destruction. In retaliation, the primals used ancient dark magics to strike back. The Chozo and many other friendly species from the galaxy tried to intervene and stop the war, but failed. They were helpless to watch as the Reptilicus species destroyed each other. Weapons of magic and weapons of science scarred the landscape, and as the war raged on, only a small region of their homeworld remained habitable, pitting tribe against tribe. The war eventually depleted the resources that the Lords of Science were using to fuel their weapons, and the primals were able to gain the upper hand. The Lords of Science were hunted down until only one of them remained. The final survivor decided to take the advice of the Chozo into account, and began developing machines to help heal the planet. These machines began absorbing toxins in the atmosphere and pollution that was found in the soil. While the final Lord of Science worked to save Brio, the primals slipped even further into barbarism, leaving magic behind, and they turned on each other. Violent battles left the remainder of their society as simple-minded savage beasts. One day, the final Lord of Science came across a lone primal girl suffering from visions of the future. She prophesied that a threat from the stars would destroy Brio. It was only a matter of time before the primals found them and butchered them both. So the final Lord of Science documented the history of his species and her warnings of the future, and sent the young primal away to leave these records behind, etched in stone. From the grave, he begged any future visitors to save their home from the starborn threat, the Leviathan. Those are the records left behind that Samus studied across Brio. Although she could do nothing for the civilization that destroyed itself, she could attempt to give the planet a future, and hope the Reptilicus species could become what they once were. Samus followed the traces of ice she discovered and found Runda's ship. It was covered in ice and the engines were still warm. He was nearby. Samus caught a glimpse of Rundus. He said nothing to her. No words were exchanged, and he left her to fend off the native wildlife and space pirates on her own. This wasn't the Rundus she knew. Something was wrong with him. Rundus attacked Samus. Normally, he was cocky and arrogant, but at the same time, he shared a friendly camaraderie with her, with an easygoing personality and a dry sense of humor. Rundus was rare among his kind. His species weren't known for becoming hunters, they were mostly known for being ice miners. He was a Fergisian, a species native to Fergus, one of the moon's orbiting planet Bez 3, where his species developed the ability to manipulate and control ice. The moon was known for ice mining, but Rundus enjoyed the thought of being a hunter, to the point where he had a habit of keeping trophies from every target he successfully captured or killed. Samus struggled to defend herself from his attacks, holding back while she attempted to figure out what was wrong with him, but her scans revealed something horrific. Some of the same readings coming from him matched Dark Samus's. Nothing was getting through to Rundus, and his attacks were meant to be deadly. Samus had no choice but to respond with her own deadly force. With a heavy heart, Samus was forced to destroy Rundus. Her suspicions were confirmed when the presence of Dark Samus flew from his body. The Dark Samus attack on Norian had infected the bodies of the Hunter with Phazon, and it possessed them from within. Samus believed that her power suit must have given her some protection from the corruption. Unfortunately, the rest of the Hunters didn't share the same Chozo-made power suit that she relied on, and she dreaded finding them. With the death of Rundus, Samus's missiles gained the power of ice. The space pirates were depending on their brainwashed Commander Rundus to provide the necessary protection. Now they found themselves alone against Samus and experimented with Phazon on local wildlife to train them as weapons of war. Wildlife like the native Korok beasts. Large insectoid creatures armed with a strong hide, powerful enough to repel standard weapon fire. After the fall of the Korok beasts, Samus discovered the location of the shield generators. An airstrike from a ship could easily destroy them, but the generators were protected by space pirate anti-aircraft turrets. Her ship was damaged by the turrets, and it immediately left the area to begin self-repairs. In the meantime, Samus had disabled both turrets so she can get access to the shield generator. As long as they were active, her ship wouldn't be able to get close. Each turret was protected by a squad of space pirates and was powered by internal canisters of fuel gel. If she could access the underside of the turrets and eject the fuel canisters outwards, the explosion from the ruptured tanks would destroy the cannons. With no turrets to protect them, the shield generators would be totally vulnerable. Samus had finally made it inside the Leviathan. The environment inside the structure instantly reminded Samus of the impact crater on Talon 4. Although that Leviathan had already been consumed, its remnants were still recognizable. The Leviathans were both sentient creatures and objects at the same time, living meteors composed of inorganic matter and Phazon. Samus made her way deeper inside the Leviathan and encountered the Guardian protecting its core. One of the many giant war golems created by the Reptilicus Lords of Science to destroy the Primals. This one had long been deactivated, but the socketed energy orbs that powered it were reinvigorated by Phazon. It seemed the only way for Samus to damage it was to overload the orbs and bring the Moganar offline. Once the war golem was out of the way, the Leviathan core would be exposed to an enormous blast of Phazon. Leviathan was destroyed and all Phazon production ceased. Aurora Unit 242 pointed Samus towards the next Leviathan, located on the planet Elysia. The bounty hunter Gore was also sent there, but just like Rundus, all communication was lost, and Phazon was spreading quickly throughout the planet. The Leviathan impact site was covered by deep storm clouds, a trip too dangerous to take her ship through. The closest alternative route was an automated research facility run by Unit 217, one of the Aurora units infected with the virus and shut down. In preparation for her mission, the vaccine program to purge the virus was installed in Samus' suit. Her first objective was to restore Unit 217 and investigate Gore's whereabouts. Elysia was a very different world from Bria. Instead of striking a surface, the Leviathan was embedded in the planet's solid core. Elysia had no actual surface, since it was a gas giant covered by noxious gases, and wasn't habitable by traditional life forms. The parts of the planet that could sustain life were located high above the clouds with a less extreme environment, although powerful storms and winds still occurred. The only known inhabitants of Elysia were mechanical beings known as the Elysians. As Samus searched for Unit 217, she studied their historical records left behind, and they attacked her, although they were the legacy the Chozo left behind. When they discovered Elysia, they built the structures high in the sky, and named it Skytown. Skytown was used as an interstellar observatory where they launched satellites to study the rest of the cosmos. Eventually, the planet's powerful storms began taking a toll on Skytown, and the Chozo realized they needed help maintaining the station. They created the robotic Elysians 50 years after they settled the planet. But the Elysians weren't ordinary machines. The Chozo gave them the gift of self-awareness. Each Elysian was alive in their own individual manner. They looked upon their creators as they constantly watched the skies, learning more about other worlds, and in time the Chozo of Elysia decided to leave, to explore the rest of the galaxy. The Elysians were entrusted with the responsibility of maintaining the station. The Chozo left it to stand as a beacon for any future visitors seeking knowledge of everything they learned. One of the mysteries the Chozo uncovered was something they described as a very far away living planet. Samus immediately suspected that the Leviathans had a connection with this planet, and the Chozo left the Elysians with the knowledge to continue studying it. They continuously collected data, but never found concrete answers behind the planet's location or its purpose. Hundreds of years later, the Elysians began running low on supplies and fuel and created smaller, less independent machines to process fuel from the atmosphere below. However, their efforts weren't enough to maintain their energy requirements. The Elysians entered a state of hibernation to preserve energy. Although they were mechanical beings, they still shared a bond with the Chozo, their creators. And while hibernating, they had troubled sleep filled with disturbing visions. The Elysians saw their creators find a new home on Talon 4, and they saw the Leviathan impact slowly destroy their civilization. All they could do was helplessly watch the Chozo and share in their pain. More time passed and new visitors arrived on Elysia, the Galactic Federation. The Elysians awakened from their slumber and prepared to defend their homes from the invaders. But the Galactic Federation introduced themselves as a peacekeeping force. Together, the Elysians and representatives of the Galactic Federation negotiated, and Skytown became an important station for the Federation. They used the powerful sensor arrays to transmit important military and research data across the galaxy. In return, the Galactic Federation supplied Elysians with parts and fuel. The relationship was mutually beneficial, and both parties worked together to stop multiple cosmic and space pirate threats. Once the Federation developed the Aurora units, they proposed an idea to the Elysians. They would connect the Aurora unit to the station's network, and the connection would automate control of the facility and the Elysians. This would grant them the ability to communicate with one another regardless of distance and transmit massive amounts of data. Installing the Aurora unit would be seen as a major upgrade for the Elysians, and Unit 217 was installed, joining the Galactic Federation Information Network. The space pirates saw Elysia as a Federation spy base and chose to attack it, to cripple their ability to transmit information. 5 months prior to Samus's arrival, Skytown Systems detected a Leviathan impact on a planet in a nearby galaxy, and Unit 217 began studying where it came from. It came through a wormhole from an incredibly distant world. 1 month before Samus's arrival, the Elysians attempted to transmit the information they uncovered to the Galactic Federation, but by then, the Aurora unit had been infected by the virus and was shut down. The Elysians had no way to communicate to the outside. And then the Leviathan struck the core of the planet, along with an army of space pirates. Just like on Brio, they generated an energy shield to protect it. Within 2 weeks, the Phazon corruption spread, and even the Elysians fell victim to its effects, falling under the control of the space pirates and Dark Samus. Before Samus arrived, Gore went to Elysia to reactivate the Aurora unit, and the Elysians witnessed him fall under the influence of Dark Samus and Phazon. Gore led an assault on Elysian survivors until only a small amount of their number remained to be used as space pirate weapons. Samus prepared herself to find and confront Gore. If he was indeed corrupted by Dark Samus, there would be no way to return him to normal. Deep within the Skytown station, she found Aurora Unit 217, opened the maintenance hatch, and inserted the vaccine to restore its functions, and Gore made his presence known.
This turbulence is insignificant. I'll show you what I mean. Up there! The network's been severed. You have no chance of destroying the seed unless you restore the Aurora unit.
What a terrible dream we were having. Thank you for purging our Phazon corruption and allowing us to awaken.
Gore severed the communication cables required for Unit 217 to control Skytown systems. Without repairing them, the plan to disable the Leviathan shield could never be accomplished. Samus needed to track down Gore and use his plasma cannon for the repairs. She would have to face him and take it by force if necessary, and it wouldn't be long before she found him. Samus received an emergency signal from her ship. Gore was attacking it to draw her out.
Catch! Everything will be corrupted, including you.
Samus's ship left to begin more self-repairs, and Samus faced Gore in combat. Like Rundas, he was completely out of his normal mind, and Dark Samus was in control. Gore was originally a respected war veteran. He fought for the liberation of a planet called Wotan 7, and lost most of his biological body from combat wounds. He went through heavy cybernetic augmentation and gained the ability to merge with machines. Only 6% of his original biological body remained. Because of the horrors he went through, Gore typically conducted himself as a compassionate, empathetic hunter that often chose logic over violence. He was a champion of the weak, poor members of the Galactic Society, often working for free or giving his earned bounty rewards to the victims of his targets. But that Gore was gone. Dark Samus left Gore's body as he faded away, and Samus claimed his weapon set, a plasma beam capable of generating enough heat to fuse the communication units back together. Samus returned to the maintenance center under Unit 217 and re-established its connection to Skytown's network.
Thank you, Samus. We have restored our connection to Skytown's network. Now we can execute our plan to destroy the Leviathan. We must first disable the Leviathan's protective shield. Unfortunately, the generator for this shield is hidden beneath the dense clouds of Elysia, and so is impossible to reach directly. As an alternative to destroying the generator, we have calculated that a massive thermonuclear explosion would likely destroy the shield itself. This facility possesses the components to create such a device. We would like you to build this device and drop it on the Leviathan's shield.
The Space Pirates' plan to raise the Leviathan energy shield under Elysia's thick clouds worked. Samus couldn't access the shield generators and knock them offline, at least not the traditional way. The Aurora unit estimated that a thermonuclear bomb would be powerful enough to break through the shield, but Samus would need the aid of her ship in order to move and assemble the heavy parts needed to build the bomb. An army of corrupted Elysians and space pirate forces stood in her way, but her objective was too important. Without the bomb, the shields would remain. The bomb was completed and placed within the container. Now it just needed to be dropped from the atmosphere directly on top of the shield. With its systems back online, Unit 217 activated Skytown's engines and moved the entire facility directly above the Leviathan. The mission was extremely dangerous. In order to successfully drop the bomb, Samus had to manually release the cables holding the bomb pod, and use an escape capsule in order to leave the area before becoming part of the blast. At that moment, the space pirates realized what she was planning and mounted a final desperate assault to keep the Leviathan shield intact.
Engine override initiated. Deploying emergency escape pod. Engine
The plan worked flawlessly. A large number of space pirates were wiped out in the explosion, and the bomb annihilated the shield. Once Samus entered the Leviathan, she found a structure similar to the one in Brio, and knew how to destroy the Leviathan. She had to find a way to the Phazon core deep within, and unleash another blast of Phazon. But just like the Leviathan on Brio, the space pirates ensured that the Elysian one also had protection. This time they used a Helios, a mechanoid armed with 4 tentacle-like appendages. Elysia was free, and Samus hoped that one day the remaining Elysians would rebuild and recover. But the Leviathan nightmare wasn't over. The Galactic Federation discovered a communication capsule with a message from Gendrada, the final hunter from Samus's group. She was on a mission searching for space pirate bases. What she discovered was far more significant. She located one of the major space pirate homeworlds, a planet the space pirates referred to as Retribution, or as the Galactic Federation tagged it, SN-883. A Leviathan also struck the planet, much to the Federation's confusion. The corruption was spreading fast, and the planet was becoming pure Phazon. Perhaps the space pirates were using the Phazon to enhance their forces even further. And normally the Federation wouldn't bother saving a pirate homeworld from corruption, but the risk of Phazon corruption spreading to other parts of the galaxy was too grave. The Galactic Federation even agreed to provide backup as soon as they could in the form of a full-scale invasion. Samus's new mission: investigate the space pirate homeworld, destroy the Leviathan, and locate Gendrada. Once Samus landed on the homeworld, she realized that something was happening within the heart of the Space Pirate Command structure. A schism was forming due to the attack on the homeworld. When the Leviathan was on the way, the Space Pirates stationed here attempted to fight back to keep the infection away. But Space Pirates fanatically loyal to Dark Samus praised the corruption and welcomed its gifts. It seemed that not all Space Pirates bowed down to Dark Samus's rule. She forced herself into command and was too powerful to stand against. The only way to the pirate homeworld Leviathan was via a supply route that connected directly to it, but the harsh acid rains pounding the planet were too acidic, even for Samus's current suit. Luckily, the planet was a hub of space pirate research where they developed technology to support their forces, including X-ray visors, shielding required to counteract the acid rains, and the mechanical enhancements that regrew and healed much of Ridley's body. While investigating, Samus received an urgent message from a Federation Marine asking for help.
Samus, thank the stars it's you. I thought I was a dead man. I think I can help you get to the seed. As I'm sure you know, the path to the seed entrance is exposed to the acid rain. However, I've seen the pirates using a special suit shield that protects them from the elements. If you can acquire one of these shield units, you could probably make it to the seed. Lucky for you, I've seen where they make these devices. Here are the coordinates.
You know, you should never trust strangers, Sammy. This is gonna be fun.
It was a trap by Gendrada. As expected, completely corrupted by the influence of Dark Samus. Gendrada's origins were publicly a mystery, but her shape-shifting abilities were incredibly similar to the biomorphs of planet Jovia 12. Her age was also unknown, but her playful prankster attitude suggested that she was still in her youth. She saw bounty hunter as an enjoyable sport and considered Samus to be her main rival. Her dream was to surpass the skills and reputation of Samus as quickly as possible, and she was often hired for missions requiring stealth. Under the influence of Dark Samus, Gendrada was responsible for identifying weaknesses within the space pirate forces. Any weak links within their troops were dealt with violently. Whichever of them survived were hardened and stronger. Samus was coming, and Gendrada vowed to hand over Samus's helmet to Dark Samus as tribute. Gendrada presented quite the challenge to Samus, but Samus's skills were unmatched on the battlefield. The final hunter was destroyed. The allies that Samus fought alongside and formed friendships with were annihilated by her own hands. With the defeat of Gandreda, Samus gained her grapple upgrade, which allowed her to drain or apply electric energy. Now she had access to most of the restricted space pirate areas. The Galactic Federation was ready to come in for their final assault against the pirate homeworld, and they needed Samus to disable the barrier protecting the base so they could land. Samus traveled to the barrier's control center, and on the way she faced heavy space pirate resistance, and they unintentionally provided her with powerful tools that she could use against them. After destroying a space pirate mining cannon, she stole the space pirate Nova Beam, and adapted it to her arm cannon. It gave her the ability to fire high-frequency power beams originally meant to be installed in mining equipment for cutting Phazon. Once she deactivated the space pirate barrier, the Federation attack commenced, distracting the pirates even further while Samus continued searching for the Leviathan. The incoming demolition team would clear the way for Samus to access the tunnels leading directly to the inside of the Leviathan.
Outstanding work, Samus. I don't say this often, but I sure am impressed. That said, you've still got work to do. Up ahead is the pirate cargo line that leads to the sea. There's a large security door located at the end. 4 demolition troopers are needed to open the final door, so you need to make sure enough of them make it safely through this area. You are the only one who can destroy the seed. We'll help along the way. Once we get there, it's up to you to finish the job. We're right behind you, Samus. Do some damage.
back again, but he was changed. The space pirate experimentation with Phazon and everything learned from Project Helix on Talon 4 resulted in this new and improved Omega Ridley. After his failure to stop Samus on Norian, Ridley was taken back to the space pirate homeworld and infused with Phazon. The infusion increased his strength, and he was placed as the guardian of the Phazon core inside the Leviathan. Additionally, constant close exposure energized him to new combat levels, and his body's durability was equivalent to Phazon enhanced armor plating. The mechanical parts he previously had grafted onto his body were slowly being pushed out by his regenerating skin. But Samus was also much more powerful compared to her pre-Phazon exposure, and Ridley still carried an injury to the middle of his chest that didn't heal properly. The weakness Samus needed to exploit. The Leviathan was destroyed, and Ridley evaporated into a mist of Phazon. Samus fully expected to see him again, since it was the same behavior exhibited when she defeated Dark Samus on Aether, and the monster was still able to reform elsewhere. The threat of Phazon to the local systems ended for now, and it was time to find an end to the conflict. The source of the Leviathans was found thanks to the efforts of the Chozo, the Elysians, and Unit 217 in Skytown. It discovered the location of the living planet responsible for the attacks. The distance to the living planet was so far, a wormhole had to be created to reach it. The Leviathan battleship orbiting the space pirate homeworld was the only solution, since they traveled through wormholes from the source to arrive at their impact destinations. This one in particular was outfitted with space pirate technology, crew quarters and command consoles, and transformed into Dark Samus's flagship. If Samus can hijack it, an open wormhole could lead to the mysterious living planet. She quickly returned to the surface and found the warp site leading to the Leviathan battleship, but when she arrived in front of the controls, she had no means of activating it. Space pirate command codes were required to pilot the living ship. Unit 242 theorized that the destroyed GFS Valhalla might contain the clues needed. The ship was simply on a training mission before it was attacked, so the true reason behind the attack was never uncovered. The Federation assumed the space pirates took a risk in attacking a large prize. The current location of the GFS Valhalla was rediscovered in the Gaflar system. Once Samus arrived, she found the scraps the space pirates left behind. The ship was indeed obliterated and mangled Federation troop bodies littered its hallways. But the space pirates were hiding something major. They clearly didn't want any visitors, and they covered the area in bioweapons they left behind, including phazon-enhanced Metroids. Before leaving, they also removed the power cells controlling many of the ship's doorways, great lengths to go to if they were simply hiding a standard pirate raid. Even a Metroid hatcher was found on board. A phazon Metroid further mutated to the point where it could reproduce. Once Samus dealt with the threats on board the GFS Valhalla, and reinserted the stolen energy cells, she discovered the mystery behind the attack. The attack itself, and the extreme devastation left behind, was no more than a distraction to hide the space pirates' true goals. The only thing that was stolen from the ship was the Aurora unit that was installed inside, and Samus was able to retrieve Unit 313's final message containing the space pirate codes.
Data log entry 2467.3. This will be the last communication of the GFS Valhalla. Our efforts to repel the space pirate boarding force have failed. They have successfully removed the primary mounting structure around our stasis tank. It is obvious now that they intend to extract us from the Valhalla. It is vital that the Federation receive this transmission. Severing main power. A large bioform is creating a wormhole. Implant into sentient planet which is the source of all phazon. Darkness coming.
Samus, we have gained control of the Leviathan. Now we'll be able to open a wormhole and warp to phase. It's time to end this. Once you rendezvous with the fleet, we'll head straight into the belly of the beast. I look forward to fighting alongside you again, Samus. Godspeed. Thank you, Ensign. Leviathan Command, you are clear to fire the portal beam. Once the wormhole is open, order all ships to enter.
Affirmative, Admiral. Message to all ships. Prepare for entry. Maintain battle formation timeless.
Samus finally arrived at the source of the Leviathan attacks, the source of all Phazon in the galaxy, the planet Phase. The close proximity to the colossal amount of Phazon present forced Samus' suit to be in a permanent hyper mode that needed to vent its Phazon periodically to prevent overloading its systems. The corruption inside of her was also growing stronger, but her suit was holding it at bay. Phase was the strangest planet Samus had ever visited, the strangest planet the Federation had ever uncovered. The planet itself was an enormous cosmic living creature, and at the same time it housed a Phazon-based ecosystem complete with wildlife of its own that fed on and grew from the substance. All the Leviathan impacts for countless eons came from Phase. The inside of the planet held the equivalent of wombs, where Leviathans were born and grew. Every 100 years, once the Leviathans reached maturity, they would be ejected from Phase and sent to hit planets around the galaxy. Once a planet was impacted, Phazon corrupted it from within, until the infected planet became a copy of Phase. Corruption was Phase's reproductive process, and it wouldn't stop until it spread itself everywhere. For Samus, it was time for Retribution. For the Chozo of Talon 4, for the Luminoth of Aether, the Marines that died defending them, and the Hunters lost to Dark Samus. It was time to end Phase and its protector and servant, Dark Samus. Even with all of its power, Dark Samus still couldn't defeat her template. But Dark Samus had planned for this exact scenario, learning from her last battle with Samus. Now that Samus was on Phase, Dark Samus enacted the trap meant to destroy her once and for all. Unit 313, the Aurora unit stolen from the GFS Valhalla. Since these supercomputers were partially organic, Phazon corruption could easily manipulate them, and Dark Samus merged directly with it. Similar to Mother Brain controlling planet Zebes, Dark Samus had also integrated 313 into planet Phase as its ultimate control unit. It was now part of the planet. Once Samus was destroyed, Dark Samus could use Unit 313 to control Phase. Soon the entire galaxy would be at their mercy. Samus' scans and her experiences with Mother Brain painted an opportunity, however. Mother Brain was connected to the facilities on Zebes, and her destruction caused the explosion that destroyed the space pirate base. If Unit 313 was part of the planet now, its destruction could potentially cause a chain reaction that would implode the entire world from within, wiping out Phazon forever.
unstable energy spikes in multiple locations on the planet. It's a chain reaction. It's accelerating.
The planet's going to explode!
Order the fleet to disengage and prepare to retreat. Activate the Leviathan's warp field. Get us out of here!
Damage reports coming in. We've lost 37% of the fleet. Half of the surviving ships are reporting heavy casualties.
Sir, we've confirmed the wormhole has disappeared. All the Leviathans are gone. The crisis is over.
What about Samus?
Negative, sir. No contact.
Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Samus's ship.
The Phazon nightmare was finally over. With the source of Phazon destroyed, Dark Samus couldn't possibly reform, and the future of many planets was now secured, no longer threatened by attacks from Phase. Another mission accomplished. Samus took a trip back to Elysia to reflect on her lost hunters in arms. Their deaths had been avenged, and for just a moment she took some solace in the peaceful view. But a bounty hunter's work was never finished. Somewhere out there, another threat could be looming just behind Samus. Join me next time for the Metroid Timeline Part 7, the Doomseye Weapon. The threat of Phazon might be over, but space pirate activity still poses a threat, and a new unit of Galactic Federation Marines prepared to defend the galaxy from a new space pirate weapon that can affect the size and mind of its victims. A weapon under the protection of the Master Brain.